really interesting.
So mostly international clients. Okay.
Yes, all US-based clients. Some of them would have operations in like Barcelona or the Bahamas or Cyprus or something like that, just because their US operations have some subsidiaries over there.
So, and I'm going to bring this up with Keelan. I mean, one of the strong points or the highlights of what the value proposition of your company is that many of whom you've hired have been previously trained, right? They've sort of gone through the
We're
system.
hiring from across the board. In fact, I was going to plug that we're actually hiring both here in the US and in the Philippines. So hit me up later on if there's any interest in there. But we've hired literally people from right off college, right? So we have really fresh grads. And then we've had people that have, I think the longest that we've had is somebody with an 8-year experience. And these people at the 8-year experience level can serve as literally as a controller for a US company over here. And I think what we have seen, and then this is something that I also want to share, is that the training, just from an accounting perspective, and even easing up with like client relations, etc. It's at least based on our experience, we let them run away with it. Obviously, you guide them appropriately with the training and all that stuff, and the tools and the technology. We use the best technology out there available to make sure that there's resources to help them do their work successfully. In a couple of months' time, believe it or not, they can get up and running. Because I think whether a company is in the US or in Spain or in the Philippines, accounting, debits and credit is the same language. So that's sort of like something that we're able to capitalize on.
Okay, great. So I wanted to bring up that point with Keelan because I think one of, again, the highlights here is having specific expertise, right? There's an amount of trust, credibility that you bring to the table because you have a workforce that has been there and done that and has had clients that have certain expectations and best practices in place. So maybe, Keelan, you could talk about your business and company, how it's evolved, and grown and scaled, and the perception of the outside world, your clients and customers. You did talk about not competing on cost, but to provide the best quality. And I tend to go down that route myself just as a consumer. Those inexpensive pieces of clothing that you could buy for $2 after one wash, it falls apart. So what's the point? But from a services perspective, when you have deadlines, when you have certain things that are very critical to the business, it's imperative that not only do you work within the budget that you're given, but you do produce, the product that you need within the organization.
I don't know how many people here are familiar with agile software development. Who's heard of it? Okay. Who hasn't? Okay. So basically, quick explanation. I don't know if this is a good explanation, but so the software development being done in most startups and the type you might find in a place like this in Silicon Valley, that's usually agile software development, where it's not so much about the form, making sure you have all the documentation and you have all the sign-offs. It's about getting stuff out the door and make things work and they don't break when they reach the customer. Whereas in, say, something in an IT department, it's about people covering their butts and making sure that nobody gets blamed and all the forms are signed off. So an outsourcing firm like maybe Accenture would be servicing the IT department, and they know those, they're into those formal processes. Whereas a company like mine and Arups, who couldn't make it, Blast Asia, we service product companies, and their only goal isn't, whereas IT departments have their politics to deal with, our only goal is to create good software that works and get it out the door with a minimum of cost. So what Lean is to manufacturing, Agile is to software development, for those familiar with Lean. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Lean.
All right. So basically, yeah.
But if I understood this correctly, there is software that needs to be released by your clients,
Right.
and your company tests and makes sure that it works before it's released.
We build it in ways so that we cut out the stuff that doesn't really lead to anything productive, like formal sign-offs and all the things that are just basically ways to protect different departments from. So, for example, cross-functional teams in most big companies, so the business analysts are in one floor, the programmers are in one floor, the designers are in one floor. They talk to each other only through email, and it takes a long time for things to get resolved. They have their own politics. They all report to different heads. A project is there's no one project group. It's like a factory. It's like a assembly line. And software development in such an environment is very slow. Whereas if you're working with a small product firm, maybe one of the programmers is one of the owners, and maybe there's just another programmer. They don't want to deal with that. They want to get software out the door before their competitor does. They don't want to have too many formal processes because they're paying for billable hours, right? They want an elite cross-functional team, not just programmers, but also the QA people in the same team, the designers, same team. If there's a problem, they're just right in front of each other. They're not emailing each other across different floors. They want they want the best talent. And for example, for us, we're a 100-person company, not huge like Accenture, but end of May, we already had 1,500 applicants, and we only hired maybe 4 people, 4 graduates so far this year. So our selection rate is very